Peace and respect to all. Welcome to Demolished Doctrine, the beginning of the end of religion, and our Wednesday show. A few minutes late, but I don't think you really care. All right, let me cue that back up, Mac.
All right.
What is Christianity? What does that mean? And should I be a Christian?
Yeah. So, I was just saying, there's for me at least, there's a connotation to the word Christian and to the label Christian that frankly is pejorative in my opinion. That refers to a very specifically, almost exclusively American section of American society, because it is an American form of Christianity mainly now. That just, I mean. They ask you to believe things that I'm convinced are not biblical, and proclaim that they believe things that I'm convinced at this point are not biblical. And by the way, Richard's not the only person that's convinced me that. It's been through years of trying to understand what that means, what it means to be biblical.
It's more like your search of that has brought us together.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So but not only that, but they're also like they proclaim belief in that, and they ask you to believe in it. And also unbiblical and a lot of times illogical. And what just made Richard say, "Oh my gosh, let's go live," is when I said, just the other day I was discussing something that I find difficult to reconcile in the Bible with logic. And the response was not unfamiliar to me, but it really, honestly, this response makes me crazy. And the response was that there's some hubris involved in me expecting my understanding of what's logical and what's not logical to match up with God's logic. In other words, God operates in a different realm of logic than I do. And so in that way is inaccessible to me. I mean, yeah, I had to shut down the conversation because to me, that means I can't, unless I am given God's logic, I can't reconcile with something that seems illogical to me by definition.
Let me extrapolate out from that real quick. Let me just run forward with what that would mean. Okay, so first it means that God made logic for himself and for me and made them differently. That's the first thing. Right. Okay. The second thing is that I am thereby set up with a non-God logic.
That's right.
Which means, that would entail, right? That would be entailed. So what else is entailed by that is that God doesn't want me to have the correct logic. God wants me to have the flawed logic. Exactly. And now God expects me to understand him on knowingly flawed logic. How ungodly is that? He set me up. What an asshole.
I know, exactly. Hey, St. Tommy.
And that's what they're saying entails. They're saying that their God is so righteous that he set me up for failure again. Exactly. I just want to point that out.
And, I'm not somebody that wants to bash individuals ever, and people who have these beliefs. I know there are so many sincere seekers in this world. And so that makes me feel sad, that they're like, it's easy to goof on them it's easy to goof on this belief, but it's actually fairly tragic. I mean, it actually kind of breaks my heart that there are people that live in this world where their God is inaccessible, where they can't know their God. I think you were in a conversation the other night where people were talking about a transcendent God in that way, and kind of in a way where that expressed why he's worthy of worship and things. And I'm tearing up a little bit, dude. That people are so in their own way, when they conceptualize God as inaccessible like that. And I really think it's tragic on an individual level.
It's got to be. I mean, that is hurtful. It's the story of unrequited love, isn't it?
Man. Yeah.
I love this other person. I love them so deeply, and they just mean everything to me, and I cannot attain to them. I cannot. And that's all my fault. And I'm the flawed one. Wow. Right. Really?
Horrible.
Because the way I understand reality, and with my flawed, bad God logic that God gave me that's ungodly, with that logic, the way I understand reality is if you're a teacher or you're more learned and you're trying to pass information to someone who's well below you, you have to condescend to them. Because it's unreasonable to ask them to ascend to you without the experience. So this is what's being claimed. That you are expected, this is what Christians are saying, you are expected to ascend to God without the experience of God. Well, good luck. That's not reasonable. And what does that cause? People to be self-diminished, self-hating, hating of others.
That's right.
How does that sound healthy to anyone?
Sarcastic. And by the way, why does it sound like so many people we know?
Because that's what they're set up to believe.
You know, how do you hear the good news and get really grumpy about it? How does that happen?
Why does good news cause grumpiness and hatred? Yeah. Why is that?
How come you're not feeling happy?
Well, I've got good news. I've got good news. It's all misunderstood, and the angels and Christ are going to clarify it. So this hatred and prejudice and self-righteousness and pride is actually going to go away.
Right.
But it's going to take the interference of angels and Christ to do it. So there is light at the end of the tunnel.
We'll be happy for the lessons we've learned, So it's just a weird place we're in right now.
It is a weird place. I'm glad that it's not a permanent condition. I really am.
Yeah.
If this were the permanent condition, that would be so depressing to me. I don't know that I could go on. On the flip side of that, people who are open-minded and will receive evidence as it comes will cry less. People who have some kind of tradition that locks them into a certain mindset where they cannot learn or it's difficult for them to learn will cry more. Not that no one will cry. There'll be no person who doesn't cry. My opinion.
Right.
But you make a good point. How can we say something like good news makes me hateful?
Right.
How does that make sense?
It makes me angry. It makes me, want to go get into arguments and put people down and stuff. I guess arguing isn't necessarily negative, but you know what I mean.
Combative arguments, not progressive arguments.
Right. The kids and I were discussing Superman today at breakfast, and we were talking about how having super hearing is very, very hard for him. And when he first developed it, because he could hear all of the anguish in the world louder and louder, all of the cries for help and all of the people that he couldn't help, even him as Superman. And the way he learned to deal with it was first of all, he recognized that that's true, that he'll never be able to get to everyone, and that's part of the world that he lives in. But also he learned to listen to the other sounds too, and my daughter said, "There's roses in those thorns." And I said, exactly. yeah, I mean, you might get scratched when you go in to pull out a rose, but you know, that's it's an important part of the thorns.
That's amazing. How old is this child?
She's turning 11 this summer.
That was well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Richard the Stoic. I like that comment.
Peace and respect, Puff. Good to see you around.
I think stoic is a good adjective for you.
I think well, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to map the reality in my mind, and the more I can gather information, the more defined my map is, the more correct it is when I accept reality. Mm-hmm. And the better adjusted I am, because I'm using that map to interact with the outside reality. Right. You know? So right, I want the map to be correct. And what I find to be true is my acceptance of reality, which is evidenced by the interaction with reality working in real time, is evidence that that part of my map is accurate.
Gotcha.
That's what I think is going on there.
Right.
So when I run up against something that makes me angry, I should be asking the question, what part of reality have I not accepted? That's the right question. Because if you just accepted it, what's that?
I was just going to suggest that maybe Puffalopagus is talking about like righteous anger, like appropriate anger. Which is sort of a different category.
I find myself I find myself fooled sometimes that a person will tell me that they're honest, that a person will tell me that they're forthcoming, and that they mean what they say. And right. Then I internalize that on my map, you know, concerning them. And then when they do something different, I want to act like that was real when it wasn't, because I was fooled.
Right.
And it's that disparaging right there. It's that discrepancy that I find frustrating.
I see.
Until I readjust my map.
Right.
That's the part I get angry about, is that, I thought it was this, now it's this. That's the part that I don't like. Everything else, I'm just trying to accept it for what it is. Peace and respect to Tina Jones. I'm just trying to accept it for what it is. And I find that when I do that, no matter how, I don't know, rotting flesh of someone that sniped a deer and it got away, and I find it, and it's just beyond disgusting. It's beyond, if you've ever been around something like that, at 20 feet away, you get the hint of like black pepper. But as you approach, it becomes so pungent and so horrible and so overpowering. It's like take a tablespoon of black pepper and just, you know, snort half and then swallow the rest.
Right.
And that's about what it does to you. Like it's bad, you know. But even that, I can look at it and go, oh, okay, well, that's what it is. You know,
right?
So it's not shocking and it's not horrible the same way mentally, even though physically it still is. You know, I don't know how to say those things, but it's been something like that.
I think I know what you mean. That revulsion is something you've overcome. You know that, yeah.
I mean, as soon as I get my map on straight, like I'm not going to get mad at Gio or Jill anymore. It's what they've done in the past to make me mad will no longer work. They're going to have to come up with a new trick.
Right.
I have to find some other part of my map
right.
that says this, and it's actually this, and they're going to have to use that one.
And pull the rug out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that sounds a lot like what, you know, my psychologist would say to me, you know, like it's a lot to do with mental health. That is a lot to do with just, you know, reconciling with things the way they are, kind of either accepting them or doing something about them, you know? And that isn't just like problems, but also like when you recognize something going well, reinforcing that. And like if you have a more productive day after a good night's sleep, maybe make it a point to get a good night's sleep from then on. Since assuming you enjoy having a productive day. Things
assuming
like that. Very simple.
Maybe you really enjoy a terrible, unproductive day.
Yeah, I don't know.
It reminds me, that sounds so much like George Carlin. I miss George Carlin. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
who
boy,
said,
me too.
One of my favorite George Carlin's was "Have a nice day." Have you ever heard him go on about "Have a nice day"?
No,
you don't.
I don't
know
think
this
so.
one.
No.
He says, so maybe I've had like 5, 6, 7 nice days in a row, and I'm really, really well set up for a really crappy day. And some loose-lipped cashier making demands on me says, "Have a nice day," and I feel like, okay, great, now I've got to. Awesome. I was so ready for a crappy day.
That's great.
Now you've put it off, and it's lingering over my head somewhere, and all that.
I did have a lady once on her way out of the restaurant. And I said, "Have a nice night." She turned around and said, "Yeah, don't tell me what to do."
Was she kidding?
I thought it was great. She was really
kidding.
Drunk.
Yeah,
she was drunk. So I think she was ready to get ornery, but I thought it was hilarious. I kind of fell in love with her a little bit. Like, that's great. I'm going to use that. But
I've personally always liked overly literal for humor.
Yeah, me too.
I've always liked that.
That's funny.
Okay, so what can we do? That's the next question. What can we do? Go ahead.
I was about to tie it back to the Bible. I was about to say there's instances of that, I think, in the Bible, using, literal metaphors, at least, sort of in a humorous way. I don't know. I mean, we brought up the whole Peter and rock pun, earlier. I don't know if that was Jesus making a joke, but it definitely counts as a pun, like in terms of
it is a pun. Yeah, it's definitely, and the Catholics took that way too serious. Hey, they didn't see the joke.
Yeah,
they didn't see the wordplay. Oh well, they'll be fine.
I've been thinking a lot about the I guess the spirits of God again. I know we've gone down that road before, but the seven spirits, is it?
Yeah.
I guess that's part of what I think about, is how, like, the visible light spectrum that we're taught in school, that's not really a thing. I'm sure you know that. It's literally a spectrum, and we could have divided it in all kinds of arbitrary ways and named the parts of the spectrum anything, really. But like, in terms of the spirits of God, like dividing it into 7 seems, I think it's another instance of you trying to clarify your map. But sometimes, because maps can be overly detailed too, in a distracting way, but sometimes more details are needed. And so, it's gardening season, and I'm out in the garden a lot these days, and I'm thinking about conservation. And I also had, and we've discussed this before too, my biggest objection to your whole theory and interpretation of the Bible and everything is the wonderful connection that I feel with this planet, and how, especially this time of year, and how visceral that is for me, and how holy that feels for me. But also, like, conservation as a spirit of God is something that's really kind of like an interesting thing for me. And I don't know directly where you find that in the Bible. So that'd be an interesting thing for me to ask you, like, where's the examples of that spirit described, but also, like, what does that mean exactly? Like, in terms of, like, practice, in terms of functionality, what does that mean? I remember an early on conversation we had, you talked about, after we're all friends in heaven, what happens when our teeth fall out? and how like you don't waste things in heaven, but also your teeth keep, they don't, they need to be replaced. So they will fall out. So, what are we doing? Like what use would they be, which
I imagine they're recycled.
You could probably enrich your soil with them, frankly.
I was going to say pulverize it and put it on the roses, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Roses need a lot of calcium.
Yeah.
Okay, so to the first thing you said there, I think there'll be no loss of love in how you feel about gardening, but only that your garden moves to heaven. Not that you have to stop gardening. In fact, it says directly, the meek will inherit the earth. And that word earth right there means dirt. So it's actually meek inheriting the dirt in heaven.
Oh, that's interesting.
After all, the planet is destroyed. But heaven is not. And then as far as the seven spirits are concerned, and where I derive the seventh spirit, and you're right, the seventh spirit is never directly announced anywhere in the Bible. In fact, they've begged the question, or maybe assumed the consequence. I'll have to think more about that later. But they've said Isaiah lists the seven spirits of God, and the first spirit of God is the Spirit of God. I'm sorry. That's like saying the first part of the car is the whole car. Well, you just said part, but then you referred to the whole. So it lists six, but it states that there's seven. And I'll tell you where I find them. The seven letters to the churches of Asia at the beginning of the book of Revelation are like, the way that I read them, it's like a famous person speaking about themselves in the third person in their character, talking about how they know and what they experience and what they're there for. Okay. If you read the seven churches that way, it's an angel describing themselves. The last angel describes himself as conservation. And the rest of them are in the same order as in Isaiah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So it's got some sidebars to it. Like, I know this about you, speaking to the intended reader. And that a church is the angel or spirit, and that the candlestick, is the aspect of the person, which is why Jesus is surrounded by the seven candlesticks, and it just goes on and on. Like, it's all very well, I think, really neatly tied together. Although people, for whatever reason, try to rip it into shreds. I don't know why. What's that?
The aspect of the person.
It comments on the aspect of the person, saying you've done this wrong, but you've done this right.
I see.
Speaking to the intended reader about his past life. I mean, you could never make a universal statement like those very defined statements concerning a group of people. People are too diverse. However, if you take it as aimed at one person, it totally makes sense. So, and then it wraps up the total idea, and then it makes a promise at the end of it.
Right.
And those promises with each spirit of God escalate to so much that heaven is named after this individual.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But I think the reason that conservation wasn't literally listed directly as a singular idea in the text is because it would raise so many questions, and people's freedoms would be impinged upon. Like, if I say that God must conserve, what does that say about God?
Well, anytime you say God must something, that's a limitation. So that's
or even does. Let me just say does conserve.
Okay. Means God's frugal. God's
okay,
not wasteful, you know.
And why would you be frugal if you could create ex nihilo at no cost?
Right.
You see what that just did, and all the repercussions of that.
Right. Of course, that's also not in the Bible, but
yeah, it's not
cost. Yeah.
right. But people assume that, right? And if you want them to have the freedom to assume that, then you can't negate it.
I see. Right.
Okay, so what that would do is, in a time when really people need the confirmation bias and support of this untouchable thing that they could never attain to, but that lends them such power and support within their life and reality that they can survive. You don't want to remove that. If that's how they're surviving, you don't want to remove that. What's that?
Do people derive that much strength from that?
I can cite specific examples. I could say David Wood, the clinically diagnosed psychopath, has no reason for not killing at a whim other human beings, especially if he finds them annoying.
Yeah.
Without that. And that's an extreme case. There's more subtle cases. I've known plenty of people, who wouldn't because of Jesus.
Yeah.
Which means they would without.
To be fair, there's people that do it because they think Jesus wants them to too,
There is that too. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, mistaken beliefs in general, they might be helpful in some sense, but I think in general I'm against them. I'm against them. Hey, Crypta. Good morning.
I'm against them too.
Yeah.
If I say it in the Appalachian vernacular, I'm against them. But without acceptance, without acceptance of other things in reality that would otherwise defeat their religiosity, destroying that as a crutch, you need the replacement. You can't just pull the rug out from underneath of someone and have no safety net. So it allows for the rug, even though that's not the truth.
Yeah.
But how could we have pain and suffering and injustice in this earth without those freedoms? I mean, I think literally you couldn't have them. Like, what if imaginary, immoral, but legalistically ethical business mogul didn't oppress people, didn't take advantage of, didn't ride on their backs, treated them as equals in love and kindness? And
sounds good.
It sounds really good, but it would be heaven. It would be heaven worldwide. Yeah. And now I have to ask the question, why the hell are we here?
Well,
if we really treated each other that way. Yeah.
That's a good
Seriously.
question.
No, I think the problem of evil is that we are supposed to suffer on purpose to a greater benefit of a larger society later. And that makes sense to me. Maybe that doesn't seem justified to everyone.
I mean, I think the majority of suffering comes from, mistaken belief systems, or
I do.
Maps, if you want to use that metaphor. And I think growth occurs because of suffering, for sure. But I also I don't know. I'm not at a place where I can be like okay with it, you know, where I can reconcile with the fact that you know, where it seems purposeful enough to me, the suffering that is on a worldwide scale, where like it sits well with me, you know, where I feel like fine about it. I know people that are closer to
Can I
that
dig
than
into
I
that?
am, but sure. Yeah.
Okay. Would you be willing to have a hangnail, I mean, a piece of skin with exposed flesh under it near the cuticle of your thumb, on your dominant hand, that you would run it into stuff all the time?
Okay.
And it would hurt, you know, a hangnail. And no clippers to trim it with. So it's kind of stuck there for a month with this hangnail, right?
Sounds horrible.
It even bleeds a little bit when you bump it hard.
Okay.
But it's just generally annoying, always in the way, always catching on stuff, and it hurts every time you touch it, to anything.
Yeah.
Right? Would you be willing to put up with that for a month? And I mean 20, 30, 50 times a day you bump this. If it ensured that in the future no infant would ever be born with cancer.
Right.
Okay, now we just need to scale it. But you wouldn't be willing to have your head chopped off so no one person has no hangnail for 5 minutes. You'd be like, no, they're going to suffer that hangnail. It's 5 damn minutes. They'll be okay. Okay, so now you just need to find the balancing point at which you would say, I would go this far. Because we all have empathy and we're all willing to suffer for others. The question is, what's the amount that's too much? What's the amount that's acceptable? And those things should be really close to each other. Okay. So I ask myself the question, am I willing to have broken bones, toothaches, impaling injuries, a sexually transmitted disease, gradual aging where my body is falling apart, be treated unrighteously and unrighteously treat others as non-humans at times, having to lie and receive lies and try to sort out that whole mess while constantly seeking out love and acceptance for 120 or less years in order that I can benefit 300,000 of my descendants who will never suffer any of those things. So that I can tell them what it means to have mistakes, what it means to age, what it means to disease, what it means to like kill or be killed in an environment where that will never happen to them. It's up to you if that's worth it.
Right. I mean, of course, the flaw in that, you know, is that that's something that you believe and know, you know, but I don't have any. And it would be the same thing with the hangnail situation. Like how would I know that that's true about the babies and cancer? You know, like you'd have to convince me.
Sure.
For me to agree to that, you know, and to be like, hey, that's my baby cancer hangnail. I'm actually glad when it happens. So you achieve this level of faith and sure, your perspective changes, you know?
Sure.
I get that. I definitely get that.
So what you asked is, how do you justify that? And you're right.
Hey, big zebra. Yeah.
Peace and respect, zebra. Feel free to come in if you like. I thought today was Tuesday. Oh, that never happens to me. Never at all. All right. But feel free to come in either way.
For sure.
So how would I justify that? I literally cannot. And you're right. It's a faith position. And if it could be proved, would it be a faith position? And if it could be proved and you're honest, shouldn't you have to adopt it?
Right.
And if you have to adopt it, if you have no choice, we're right back to the suffering problem. We're right back to a utopia on Earth if you had no choice.
Right.
So to me, I know it's a cop out to say it this way.
It's just you just have to acknowledge. I'm asking you to acknowledge that it really is for you. Like this understanding of human suffering, it doesn't reach me or guys like me, in my position,
Sure, but without that amount of doubt, you couldn't have human suffering. And again, we're right back to no point of having an Earth.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to have.
It's kind of a catch-22 right there.
You guys tackled the problem of human suffering. I'm so impressed.
We just finished up.
I love it.
Did you have any questions for Mac? He's ready to answer them now.
Yes. What is the question of human suffering? What's the right question? Why does God find it necessary? Or
Johnster.
Yes. How do you? I think the problem of human suffering is. You better not be at Prager. Yeah. The problem of human suffering is how do you justify the righteousness and ability of God that either God wants you to suffer because he could fix it, right? In which case he's not benevolent, or that he is aware of the suffering, he knows of it, but can't fix it. That's basically it.
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Maybe suffering is a necessity of existence.
Well, that's very Zen Buddhist of you, but yeah, that works in Buddhism.
Suffering.
There's that idea that all life, the Buddhist thing about all life being suffering, and that once you recognize that, you are less inclined to suffer.
But isn't that
because you're not trying to desperately escape it all the time.
Isn't that self-defeating to say life is suffering, and as soon as you accept that, you can stop suffering, which means you died?
No, it doesn't mean you. I of course, a Buddhist could explain it much better than I could, but only if they spoke English.
That's not that much different than what Richard was saying. That sort of suffering is important. But once you have clarity on the purpose of suffering, then you no longer have suffering. So,
there is a personal metaphor that occurred to me a long time ago. I was going through hell because of my sleep disorder thing, because I couldn't accomplish anything, and my body during the day was either exhausted or didn't know if I wanted to fall asleep or wake up. And coffee wouldn't work, and naps wouldn't work. It was a mess. So I felt a bit like, those butterflies that when they're collected, they're pinned to a foam tray or a styrofoam tray. I felt like that and being while alive, and that I was struggling to escape the pin, and I could not.
Wow.
And which is a horrible metaphor. And trying to accept things when I realized I couldn't escape, weight loss wouldn't cure it. There was no machine. There was no deep brain stimulation that could help me breathe while I was asleep. I sort of accepted the reality that things are as they are. And like I said, a Buddhist who spoke English could explain it better.
So you're talking about sleep apnea, yeah?
Yeah, there are two different types, and even though they have obvious different causes, the groups that have both, there's a big overlap, which is really weird. So both types are connected in some way that is not well understood. There's a type of people, you've heard of people wearing a mask when they sleep. There's another type called central sleep apnea, where when you're in dream sleep or just about to get in dream sleep, your body just doesn't breathe because your brain didn't send out the right signal. And over the years, the machines that they give you for obstructive sleep apnea they've been trying to get them to adjust the pressure while you're asleep to sort of nudge your body into breathing again. And so conditions have improved. Boo-hoo! Anyway, sorry, that was a boo-hoo story, but it was on topic.
It's not a boo-hoo story. No, I mean, talking about rising above the situation, accepting it for what it is, so that you can be mentally healthy in a physically desperate situation.
Right.
Is not unimportant.
Mm-hmm. So but I stepped into this a little late. Not that you have to recap for me, but where was this conversation before Zebra barged in?
You're kind of on topic.
Oh, I am? Oh, okay. How did that happen?
By accident, probably, but it sure is likable.
John said that Noah meant to take the unicorns and leave the zebras.
Very hateful comment.
Yes,
extremely hateful,
very
unacceptable.
Did you hear about that guy somewhere in the U.S. who kept a zebra on his lot? And
no, go ahead.
The zebra just suddenly bit him on the shoulder and dragged him around forever and a day.
Oh my gosh!
They had to call the police. They shot the zebra.
They can be vicious.
Oh yeah, no question. Well, herbivores often are. They think that it's the carnivores that are vicious, but it's the herbivores that.
It's like I could stab you with a knife, or I could stab you with a spoon. The spoon's going to be worse, actually, and that's why zebra have dull teeth, so they can hurt you worse longer.
Oh wow! Wow.
Yeah. And kangaroo with their... Is that...
Can anyone read that?
Yeah, they can kill you.
No, I can't read that. I have no idea. I like them, though. I like their style.
Well, I often tell people to have a zebra kind of day. When they ask what it means, I say that it's the best kind of day you have, except with stripes.
Nice.
Deer kill dogs here. Yes, I guess
everywhere else.
I never heard of that.
Everywhere else there are deer. Yeah.
Wow.
If there's enough of them or a strong enough one, they will just kick the dog to death. And those little hooves they can put a lot of pressure in a small area.
Oh yeah. Not to mention just stepping on it. Like yap yap yap. It's all black and white. Yes, it's all there in black and white. Oh, Lord. So how are you two doing these days?
Mac's so polite.
What's the answer? Better than I...
For me?
Never better? Yeah, I forget what your Pat answer
is. For me, better than I deserve since 2012.
Yeah.
So much so that I don't expect it to change. I really don't.
Cryptomaria says deer will eat chickens, which is interesting.
That's interesting. Didn't know that. I mean, of course, all herbivores are accidental carnivores.
I saw a horse eat a chicken once, or a chick, like a baby chick, just
kind
of snuffling around on the ground, and it went sucked up the chick. It was terrible. But the horse, was just another thing that the horse ate.
Yes. And then you saw
horse.
This chicken going around. Where's my baby? Where's my baby? Sorry,
they don't actually do that.
No, they don't.
No, if it's alive and there, they recognize it. And if it's a little bit behind and it makes a lot of noise, the mom will recognize it. Otherwise, they don't give a shit. They don't care.
Really?
No.
Wow.
Chickens are funny. Yeah. Very reptilian.
Yeah, what the Bible says about the ostrich is true. They get far enough away from the nest, there is no nest. They don't care.
Huh. The Bible mentions ostriches?
Yes, and the fact that they don't protect their eggs. And that's true.
Right. Well, a lot of reptiles don't. Some do, though crocodilians will. They'll even have the little buggers running around in their own mouths for protection.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. What a cool little contrast, all those sharp teeth and their babies in there. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, at some point they have to leave the nest, and crocodilians are very cannibalistic too. If there's a food shortage, they'll just jump on each other. Why are we talking about this? I think it's my influence.
Don't know how it got there. But Crypta helped with, deer eating chickens and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yes, she did.
That added to it. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So it's the problem of evil. How do we justify the idea that there could be, first of all, a righteous God, second of all, having all power, and we experience the third point, suffering? My personal answer to that is I am willing to suffer immensely if it can be shown, which right now, as Mac pointed out, for me is a faith position, that heaven does exist, and that our descendants, and in fact our ancestors, in heaven will not suffer, and ourselves will not suffer. And I'm willing to go through immense suffering now in order to just have the experience that I can keep suffering away from them later.
I had a friend who is in terrible pain constantly, and he committed suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And
you told us about him.
Yeah. What do you think of your? Would he be accepted into heaven? Do you think, Richard?
I think he's dead right now.
Yes.
And not having experience, good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe the promise in all of these stories is that one day all of his experiences and memories will be put into a flesh that he would recognize as him.
Yeah.
And he will grow up in an environment where he doesn't have that pain again. And won't have whatever injury, accident, disease, inability to perfectly heal. And I think he'll remember it with some amount of emotional stress and recognition of what he went through, and want to prevent that in the future for others. That's what I think.
Interesting. Thank you. I keep having dreams where he turns up, and it turns out he faked his own death. And it's just like, but how? What? And I'm trying to figure it out. And
I think in that same genre, Christians are going to be pissed about those who make it to heaven.
Oh, I'm sure they will.
Like really mad, like really disappointed. And there's even a story in the Bible about that.
Really?
How they get pissed off. Oh, sure. Yeah.
Is it in Revelations or?
No, it's early on. It's early on in the story. Let's see. The story goes like this. And there was a vineyard keeper. That means the father over the earth. That's what vineyard keeper always means. And there was a vineyard keeper, and it was harvest time, which means end times, 100% of the time, by the way. It only means end. And there came an end times, which means he's got stuff to do. That's what that means. And he went into town looking for workers to collect the crop. You know what that means. Okay. So some workers he got at breakfast time or just after, some just after lunch, and some just after dinner. And they brought in the crop. But some obviously worked all day, some half a day, and some about 2 hours. And he paid all of them the same because he had offered them the same pay every time he'd spoken to anyone. And that's what he paid. And the ones who'd been there all day said, hey, wait a minute. These have been here half a day. These have been here only 2 hours. why don't I get more pay than them?
Right.
And the vineyard keeper says, piss off, it's my money. Essentially, which is the same as saying, look, there's only one heaven. It doesn't really matter when you caught on what was going on and accepted things that were. The important point here is that you accepted things that were. So that's talking about deeply religious people who are like religious their whole life, and they ascend to heaven because they can accept it, and then they're pissed off, which is funny. There's some ironic humor for you. Yeah. What? Hitler? I was sure Hitler wouldn't come in. I don't want to be in the same heaven as Hitler, you know?
Couldn't we have multiple heavens?
There's apparently one per earth. Well, there is a slight distinction there, because Jesus only gets the ones that he saves during end times, and everyone else is saved by the history of it, and thereby saved by the last Christ, or quote unquote Father.
So I take it that
there are
Hitler
two heavens to go to.
In Dante's Inferno, there's when you get to Purgatorio, humans are punished, but with the thought of perfecting their souls so they can enter heaven, sort of purifying them.
Right.
And I'm just wondering if is there some notion in the Bible about that?
Not at all.
No?
No, there's nothing at all about purgatory in the Bible. There is definitely the idea of purification, because if you died and were restored, and I mean completely restored, so you're you again, but in heaven, you would have all of these memories, and in your current situation, look at it kind of as like watching a movie of the past, like we look at ourselves now when I was 15. It's a movie of me in the past. It's not me anymore, you know? And looking at it from that attitude, there would definitely be, and there has been through my whole life, times where I went, well, I did that wrong, and I did that wrong, and I won't do that again. So that, yes, there is a purification through the natural process of what the human mind is and how they learn. Now, is that hell-ish? I don't know. What the hell did you do that you really feel bad about now that you don't have to do it, and you don't, and you see the error of it? You know, is that hell-like? It might be. I suggest accepting reality and moving on, but it might be hellish for you. And I think there's things in the Bible that lend toward that idea, but a place outside of heaven where you pay for, but then later ascend to, no such thing.
Right.
Okay, sorry, I accidentally hit the off switch on my keyboard, but I seem to have come back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I didn't see you leave.
Great. Okay. Well, I was lucky, I guess. I have a wireless keyboard now, and it actually has a PC off button. And you accidentally brush that, and it's good luck to you. Well, I have to use it because regularly spilling drinks on your laptop's keyboard is not good for its function.
I've heard that. Yeah. And falling asleep with a drink in your hand while at the computer will definitely spill your drink onto parts of computer.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, I used to wake up, watch the news right away with a cup of coffee in my hand, and I would wake up with a cold cup of coffee in my hand on my couch.
But you kept it level and you kept it from spilling.
Luckily, yes. I don't know how. But
well, there's one aspect where zebra are owl-like, keeping a hold of the limb as they sleep.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I guess owls would have to do that. Although I've seen some pictures lately of owls sleeping on their stomachs, which I find really weird. Yeah, it's just, and people take pictures of them who have owls, and they're just flaked out like that.
They are funny birds. Gentlemen, I have to shove off here. It's my youngest 9th
lovely
birthday
seeing
today.
you. Oh, happy birthday, little kid.
Yeah.
Say happy
always a
birthday.
joyous moment.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun day. Yeah.
Good, good.
Thanks a lot for your time. And I'm glad that you got to jump on, Steve.
Thank you
Side
so
chat,
much.
everybody.
Thank you for having me.
Whether
It's been real.
If we all party in heaven together, it's going to be awesome. But in the meantime, we're here together. So we've got that. That's been good.
Right,
So.
right.
Amen.
All right. I will see you later.
There you go. Hey, Richard, how about you? What have you got for today?
Coffee, cigarettes, meditative prayer, contemplative states. Yeah, that's about it.
Okay. Well, I was going to tidy up around this room of mine.
Do you have any last thoughts on the problem of suffering and
Yes. Do you remember that? I'm trying to recall it now, but there was that famous Greek philosopher whose name escapes me, and it's sort of like a famous little poem. If God is all loving, whence cometh evil? If suffering is this, if that is that, why call him God? That's
right.
Do you remember the one I'm thinking of? Hey.
I don't know that particular one, but I mean what it's saying is evident. Peace and respect, Sterling.
War and disrespect.
Okay.
No.
I found it. I will cut and paste it into chat. It sometimes gets worded differently.
Okay.
And so here we go. And here it is in private chat, coming up on public chat. If I can find the... I'll be right with you, public chat.
You're funny.
I'm a delight. What can I do?
You are a delight. Sterling, any thoughts on anything we're talking about, or perhaps a new thought that you would introduce?
I have no idea what we're talking about. I just hit the link.
Problem of evil.
Is it a problem? Is it a problem? I think we start there.
Okay. If you assume an evil God, it's no problem.
Well, let's back up. I mean, if I'm really going to indulge this, well, you have to do, like for me, like I'm not good with vocabulary and I don't have a good like reading comprehension. Like I probably read on like a 3rd grade level. So I like to define things. Like when you say evil, a lot of times when I hear that word, I feel like theist, they mean like some sort of like supernatural force that's acting, you know what I mean? Like for me,
sure.
So for me, like when I say, I never use the word evil. But if I were, it would just mean something like really, really bad.
Okay.
So like, I don't think there's any, I don't necessarily put any sort of like external force that contributes to it. I just think that it in and of itself is something really bad. Really, really
okay.
Bad.
See if this is useful for you.
Okay.
Some people, not everyone, break this down into 2 categories, and then one of the categories gets broken down again into 2 categories. So a total of 3 categories, if you will. There's natural evil, like hurricanes and stuff kill people.
Okay.
But nobody is purposefully causing a hurricane.
Okay.
All right. So that's more like calamity.
Harp.
What's that?
Well, no, never mind. Go on. There's some people that think that we are causing that thing with harp, and anyway, go on.
Oh, there is that, but that's aside from that, without getting into that. Okay, and then there's evil where there's intention. Okay, where we already did non-intentional evil. Now we're doing intentional evil. Intentional evil is things that are claimed by religious people that God is directly controlling on purpose. Okay. And then, so it's showing volition right there. Right. And then there's human volition or human will where we do evil to each other. Okay. So there's God and man with volition as one category, and then natural evil as another, if that makes sense.
Kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Okay, of course, the Christian traditionally wants to put a third entity in the second category. They want to put Satan in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the problem with evil for me. That's my problem with evil, is that for me it's just something really bad and there's no external force contributing to it. It's just something bad that happened. I don't know, when I hear you ask me generally what we're discussing the problem of evil, I truly don't even know what that means, because does it mean that God created evil and that he allows evil, or he just turns a blind eye to evil? And is everything evil inherently not from God, even though God created it without God? But aside from that, it's the devil's works. But God can't be bothered. He can't be bothered. He's here, he's there, he's omni everywhere. And the devil's sneaking things in, is the way I like to say it. And he's sneaking these things in. He's sneaking them in. God's like, huh? What? And he's on the phone, and
I like that.
and so he doesn't. I wouldn't say he allows it. He just it happens. He doesn't like it. Every single thing that's bad is not what God wants. It's not from God. Even though he did create it, and it was from evil, and he kind of did. But no, I think those are the things from the devil, from Satan. And I believe that the Satan is not more powerful than God. You say, but wait, how did the devil sneak in these things if he's not more powerful than God, who could easily demolish? He's a busy man, He's like my dad. He didn't have time.
Can't be bothered with it. Okay, so there's a few things I see there, Sterling. You have to assume a Christian reading frame of the Bible for the Bible to say those things, for it to be pronouncing those things. In a more consistent reading frame, where the word create always means the same thing, and that is the Hebrew word bara, always means the same thing. It means to change something existent. It doesn't mean to make something out of nothing. It just doesn't mean that. So when it reads God created, it means God made useful things that were useless. It gave them purpose or assigned value to them. Like if you take a piece of firewood, say a foot across and 16 inches long, and you don't have a fireplace, but you can sit on it like a chair. Well, you've assigned it a purpose. Now it's useful. Okay. Whereas as a piece of firewood, it wasn't really useful to you because you have no fireplace. Okay. For instance. And that's what the word bara there means. So when a Christian assumes that means God made the whole universe, that has to include Satan, right? Or made all of that which exists. That has to include Satan, but that claim is never in the Bible. But it does say they're two different entities. It does say that.
Oh, okay. Now I think I followed you. I didn't know where you were going with that. But okay, so you're saying that I kind of the Bible created Satan, created the fallen angel, and you're saying that's not inherently true.
Oh, that's another false association. It doesn't logically follow. If you put down a standard like no evil thing can enter heaven, and that's really a standard in the Bible, then you can't have an evil thing unrepentant going to heaven, right? So you can't have the serpent in the garden go to heaven because it's evil, and then come back as a fallen angel for chapter 6 of the book of Genesis and breed with women. See, that little triangle right there doesn't work. So when they say that Lucifer is Satan, they can't be correct.
Okay, so let me make sure. Okay, that's interesting. So when was it that Lucifer, Satan, fell, and he said, I don't want anything to do with you. And God,
there's a fall of Lucifer. There is no fall of Satan. There's no such thing.
Okay. Thank you. When did that happen?
When did Lucifer fall? Chapter 6 of Revelation, or all of the book of Enoch?
So the serpent was. So what you're saying is this. That's interesting. The serpent in the Garden of Eden came first, before the fall of Lucifer.
Way before. And Lucifer came down from heaven to fall. He was on mission. He was on assignment from God.
I've never thought about this before. I'm not very well. I don't think about a lot of these things, but that is interesting. So how do you explain that?
Two separate beings. It's obvious. It's just not one person.
Okay, so Lucifer and Satan are different, or two separate beings.
They're just obviously different persons. Yeah.
God created both?
No, doesn't claim that.
Okay.
It says that Lucifer was a high angel, which means he was, and the word angel there means in the habitation or heaven of God, right? And that's how he got an assignment, is that he was working for God. And that assignment involved hot women. Personally, I agree. And he fell. He made a mistake. Him and some of his crew made a mistake. I can live with that, but that has no bearing on Satan.
So two different critters.
Yeah.
What is Satan then, if not a new name for Lucifer after he was expelled?
Well, it means the adversary.
Yes.
Okay, but it's not a proper name. It's a description of someone who's our adversary. It's talking about its adversary to everyone. And what does it do to be adversarial? It tells lies about you and about me to you.
Who?
The Satan. That's how it's adversarial.
Give me an example of when Satan lied.
Okay. When you had that hottie on your arm and you guys went out together and you thought the hottie was looking at someone else, but they weren't.
I would never think that. But
that was a lie.
I would never think that. But my point was that, like, in the biblically, like, is there in scripture, could you give me an example of when Satan lied?
Sure. When he changed the meaning of the word death from spiritual to physical in the Garden of Eden, saying, "Thou shalt not surely die." What he was using there was the word death, meaning physical death, and of course, eating of knowledge won't kill you.
Did that? Wait, are we talking about Satan or Lucifer?
Well, you asked me about Satan, so I'm staying to Satan.
But and remind me, in the Garden of Eden, that was Lucifer or Satan?
That's Satan. He's older, much older. The older one came first in the story. That's an easy way to remember it.
Satan was the serpent. Lucifer was the fallen angel that went to.
Right.
Okay,
that's later, chapter 6. Okay.
Sorry.
So they're given according to age, and that makes it easy and not confusing. Okay, so he says in the garden, "Thou shalt surely not die." That word "die" right there is being used literally, where before it was being used euphemistically, saying that if you gain knowledge, old ideas, your old self will die, which doesn't kill your flesh. It doesn't kill your body, of course, when you learn something. So to gain knowledge of good and evil will cause you to certainly die. I have no doubt about that. You can't learn new things.
No understanding of what death was.
You can't learn. That's not what it's about, Steve.
Okay.
And I'll explain how you can't read it that way in just a minute. That you can't gain new knowledge and remain the same. That's just true.
So,
okay.
Hold on. My question again was, and remind me, when did Satan lie? Give me an example. And because I don't know why I asked the question. I think you said something about he lied, or he was.
He's the adversary, a liar. Yeah.
And so I said, give me an example of when Satan lied, and you said
sure.
He changed the definition of a word.
No, he changed. He used it differently.
He what?
He used the word differently. Let me just put it out in steps for you. In the story, God says, when you learn stuff, your mind will change. And then Satan quotes him as having said, when you learn stuff, your body will die. Never was said.
Was it true what Satan said?
That when you learn stuff, it won't kill you? Yes, it's true that when you learn stuff, it won't kill you. The lie was he changed the usage of the word die. That was the lie.
But he used it in a way that was truthful or correct.
Well, yes, it's true that learning things doesn't make your body expire. That's true.
Yeah.
But he's saying God claimed that when you learn stuff, your body will expire. God never claimed that. It was a straw man, you see.
Okay, the straw man, sure. Yeah.
He straw manned the original statement and then tore it down. That's where the lie is.
It just seems like he should be like the world's best liar. You know what I mean? Like it seems like when someone says, "Hey, tell me one of those Satan's lies." You know, one of those, Satan. You know how he tells us, "Give me one." Like it should be like real easy to say.
It is. It is a really good lie. Do you not see Christians defending the Garden of Eden as if God righteous with this story, with this understanding?
I don't know.
It's one of the best lies ever. Christians say ridiculous things because of this.
It just kind of gets confusing to my simple brain. Like, I hear a lie. Like Satan said this, and it was not true. You know what I mean?
I just pointed out a straw man, which he would have known he was straw manning. It was an obvious lie.
Yeah. Kind of. Like, is it kind of?
Okay.
Kind of a straw man is a lie, kind of, but like it just seems like.
How do you take a straw man, a knowing straw man, as not a lie? How do you take that as not a lie?
I don't know. It just seems like maybe I'm sure you're right, and it is. It's just one of those, but it's a little bit like vague, like to me. Like it seems like Satan said, like we should be able to like say so many lies that Satan said. He should be a big liar.
He is a huge liar. There's if they're telling the truth. There's lots of examples of him lying.
Give me another one because I didn't like that one. No, and it's not your fault.
You didn't like that one. Okay.
I did, but it's not your fault. Fine. So give me a
okay. Another example of Satan lying. Knowing that the earth is going to be destroyed, he offers Jesus to be that he can make Jesus king of the earth.
Hey, I have to interrupt. I have to check out now. Thank you for having me, Richard, and sorry for showing up late.
You did not show up late. You are a wizard. You showed up perfectly on time. Thank you. Thank you for blessing us with your presence.
Oh, you're awesome. Bye now, Richard, and see you later there, Sterling.
Thank you, Steve.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Check out bigzebra.com. That's an actual website where that very intelligent man has very weird humor. Check him out.
I've told everyone about that web page. Trust me, I've seen it. I know it in detail.
Good.
Let me just quote. Let me just read something out of my memory to you, and correct me if I'm wrong. The death penalty is efficient to some degree because people think about the action they're going to do, and then they don't do it because the death penalty is out there looming to some degree. Yeah, right. You said that, and you stand by it. I'm assuming, but it's bollocks, mate. It's bollocks.
I'm sorry. When did I quote the death penalty as effective against all possibility of people committing a murder?
No, that's not what I said. But correct me if I'm wrong, because I do want to get to the bottom of this, because I wasn't involved in the conversation, but I heard it. And what I heard you say was that to some degree, the death penalty is effective because when you minimize the penalty, people commit the crime more. And I'm paraphrasing; it's not a direct quote, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay, I think someone who maybe would do it and maybe wouldn't do it, and they're kind of, when they see the repercussions of doing it, it can tip their balances, obviously.
You think that the death penalty is effective? Yeah?
No, that's not what I said. What I said is, with certain people, they may change their mind about killing someone, even in the heat of a moment, because of a death penalty.
Well, that would make it effective, no? But
no, when you say effective, you mean it works 100% of the time. I don't think that.
No, I don't think that's what you meant when you said it.
Well,
I think
then it's slightly ineffective too.
Well, what I heard you say was that the death penalty, capital punishment, to some degree, is effective. And I'm just wondering if that is what you said, and if you stand by.
I'm sure it influences and eliminates a certain amount of crime. Yeah.
Okay. So, if that were the case, though, which is not, then in states where we have the death penalty and in states where we don't, it seems that you would have a lot less murder in the states with the death penalty versus the states that don't, because again, the death penalty thwarts certain crimes in this theory, which is bollocks. It doesn't.
I don't understand. I don't understand why you're changing my position.
Oh, I'm sorry. Correct me. Go ahead.
I said it influences the number of them. In no way do I think that it eliminates all possibility.
Oh, that's not what I said. But hold on.
Yeah, it is what you just said.
No, I never said that. But slow down.
No, you said I said it. I didn't say you're espousing it. You're saying I'm espousing that when I don't.
The only thing I said that you espoused, and I admitted that I paraphrased, was that to some degree, the death is effective. That's it.
Sure.
After that, I didn't tie you to it. So I'm not sure what you mean. But like just in that quote alone, or that paraphrase alone, I take issue with it because it's not effective. In no degree has it ever been shown to be effective.
What do you mean?
What I mean is that according to the ACLU, for example, in states where they have the death penalty, in states where they don't have the death penalty, the average rate of murder is the same. So that shows me that the death penalty does not thwart murder. It's not effective. It's never been shown to be. It's bollocks.
Okay. I don't know what you're comparing it to.
I'm comparing it to states. Comparing what to?
You're saying in states where there's a death penalty, there's not less death.
No, there's the equal rate of murder in states where they have the death penalty and states where they don't enforce the death penalty.
So you're comparing it one state to another.
Well, I'm comparing a state that has the death penalty versus one that doesn't.
And you think there's nothing else to add into that equation?
I don't know what you mean. What do you ask the question again?
Okay, are there penalties in these other states for murder?
Oh, of course.
Do you think those penalties have an effect on the number of murders?
Sure.
Do you see why that just defeated your entire argument?
No.
Okay, so there's negatives over here for murder, and there's negatives over here for murder. And this set of negatives is more effective than this set of negatives, so you get an imbalance in murders. And that proves this one doesn't do anything. That's just not so. You're just saying some things are more effective than others. I agree.
No, I'm saying no. Hear me.
Well, where's the state? What you need is a control group where there's a state where there's no penalty for any murder. That's what you need.
No, Richard, that's not what we need. Listen. The claim was, to some degree, the death penalty is effective in preventing murders. Okay,
Okay.
that's okay. What I'm saying is that's not true.
I know.
It's never been. Okay, so hold on. So I don't need to point to a state that doesn't have any murder or doesn't point. No, all I need to do is point to a state that doesn't have the death penalty and show you that on average that state has the same amount of murders as a state that does. And what that does.
Okay, so if they're equal in murder, but they have different penalties, what you're saying is those penalties have the same effect.
No, listen to me. What I'm saying is that proves that the death penalty does not thwart murder.
No, it shows that the death penalty is equivalent to the other penalty. That's what it shows.
Exactly. And if one is not the death penalty and one is, and they're equal, they same rate of murder, therefore the death penalty is not more effective than, let's say, life in prison.
Oh, I agree.
In thwarting murder. So the idea that the death penalty is effective to some degree is not true. It's not. No, it's not, because what you went on to say was that, and if you have a lesser sentence, then you have people who are more willing and more willing to commit that crime. And I'm paraphrasing, but then what I interpret that is if you don't have the death penalty and you sentence people to life, then what you're going to do is you're going to contribute to a space where people are more inclined to commit murder. Is that not what you meant?
Not more inclined to commit murder, less inclined to decline from murder. That's not the same thing.
Okay, that's good. So if you have the death penalty, people are less inclined to tell me again, to commit murder. Is that your?
Yes, less inclined to commit murder because they know of this punishment for it.
But I just showed you the states.
No, you didn't.
Well, in theory, I've just showed you a state that said.
No, you didn't. What you said is there could be no death penalty anywhere, and it would have the same effect as the death penalty. I totally agree.
What did I say? Because I don't remember saying any of that. What?
You said in two different states, one having the death penalty, one not. Okay. You see the same crime rate of murder, whether it has death penalty or not.
Yes. Okay.
Now, in order to make the case that death penalty itself by itself has no effect, you need to compare it to you just said it's useless.
Has no effect. Okay, go on. You need to do what? Go ahead. I want to hear you.
You need to have a thing where there's no death penalty. There's no punishment for murder. None. In order to say that. So I'm wondering what you're comparing it to. And you said other states that have penalties. You're only telling me the penalties have the same effect. It doesn't make death penalty worthless. It doesn't do that.
I think I understand now where we're missing each other. You said that the death penalty, as opposed to a life sentence, thwarts murder. And I said...
No, I didn't. I never said that.
So when you said that the death penalty, to some degree, is effective...
Sure.
Okay, so what you weren't saying was that it's more effective than a life imprisonment.
Oh, no, I don't think that's true.
You weren't saying that because you... Okay. So when you said the death penalty is effective, what you really meant was that death penalty / a life sentence is effective. Equally.
Sure, I like death penalty compared to no punishment.
Well, yeah, okay, all right, but it's interesting that you didn't say punishment versus non-punishment is effective in preventing murder. You said the death penalty specifically, but it seems like
I'm sure that's what the topic was at the time, although I don't remember the conversation.
Me neither. But it seems like you're backing off of that and equating it to the life sentence and saying that it's not more effective than a life sentence, even though...
Hey, I'll tell you what would be really effective in preventing murders. involuntarily put a camera on everyone that has bio-induction of energy, so it doesn't need batteries, right? And then if someone kills someone else, it was recorded. And then let everyone know, if you're recorded killing someone and it seems like it's not justified, it wasn't necessary to kill them, we track you down with the same camera, because we can tell where you are because you're filming all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we start pulling out your fingernails immediately.
Okay.
Because we already have you dead to rights. We don't need a trial.
Oh.
And then when we're done with your fingernails, we're going to pull out your toenails. And we're done with that, we're going to pull out your teeth one at a time. And then we're going to burn your eyeballs slowly one at a time. And we're going to keep damaging you slowly until you die. Now that would prevent some murders.
What if there was a state that did that? And right beside it was a state that said, hey, those same murderers, we're going to give them a life imprisonment sentence. And
then they'd escape over there and kill people over there?
What I was going to say was that, and what if the rate of murder was equal in both states? Would you?
I don't think that would be so.
Would you? My question was going to be: would you then say? Would you then have to say that plucking people's eyelashes out or eyebrows out and fucking toenails, fingernails out is not, to any degree, proven effective in thwarting murder?
Yeah, I'd have to say that, yeah.
Oh, right. So when I show you states that don't have the death penalty versus states and they have equal rates of murder, should you not then say that the death penalty does not thwart murder more so than a life sentence, for example?
I do agree with that last statement. It does not thwart it more.
It doesn't thwart it more.
Of course, I never made the claim that it did thwart it more.
Right. Okay. But so no, you didn't. But you did claim that it was effective to a degree, but not more so than the life sentence. And what you're saying is that you think that they're equal?
I don't know. Apparently, what you're giving me, if your statistics are correct, they are equal. But there's other things to add into that you're really not making part of the equation, which I think necessarily should be part of the equation. For instance, if you have a life sentence versus a death sentence gets carried out. It ends pretty quickly, maybe a couple years or whatever. A life sentence lasts a really long time. Well, now you have clogged up prisons. Okay, so you have overpopulation here where you don't necessarily have overpopulation here, and for the same crime. Now we have judges and juries going, can we throw this guy in a life sentence? Well, now you have less life sentences. Well, if you have less life sentences, then it would make sense if this is actually more effective than the life sentence. The death sentence is actually more effective. It's just you can carry out less of them. Now you have more plea bargaining. You have all kinds of other problems. So, I mean, I don't see all the parameters I need to see to make a judgment there.
My question is: are you pro capital punishment, death penalty?
No,
you're not.
No,
because why?
Except in extremely rare cases,
such as,
I don't know, if someone's absolutely berserk and just like is killing people and won't quit. Like, no matter what you do, they can't stop. They need isolated or killed or something. They'll kill the inmate beside them, because they can't help themselves.
Why don't they just do solitary?
What's that?
Why don't they just go to solitary?
Because they keep killing the guards?
No, they're in solitary.
Yeah, how'd they get there?
Well, they fucking Did
they walk on their own into solitary and lock themselves up? Is that what you're saying?
The Hannibal Lecter, they put them in the cart with a mask and they put them in the room and they don't come out.
It's possible to keep them alive. Yes, you could. You could restrain them enough, maybe drug them enough, lock them to a dolly enough to keep them alive without them killing people.
Would you?
I don't know why.
Which would seem like you would rather. Seem like you would rather kill them. or they deserve to be killed? Or not?
I'm not for killing people. I'm for protecting the people.
But in certain instances, you said that it would, and this was the instance.
Possibly.
Is it,
but I'm talking about very, very extreme cases, like the police cannot overpower the guy, and he's got a machine gun. He's just wiping out crowds of people. I'm okay with the police putting the guy down. I'd prefer they shot him somewhere non-lethal, you know. But if they shoot him somewhere and the bullet ends up somewhere lethal, well, he was just like rampantly killing folks.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Sure.
in a mathematical sense, it was better to end him than let him continue to end lots of other people.
Sure. But that's not the same as
Okay.
saying if you had a preference, like would you choose to kill that person or to imprison that person? It's kind of different.
Well, okay, with limitless resources in a world where money doesn't matter and there's nothing to be gained and someone's mentally ill for whatever reason and they could be locked up rather than kill them, I would go with locked up.
Yeah. Me too. Which and if you were, and I think we agree, which is why it would be hard for me to say. I would never say that the death penalty is effective. I would never say that.
But it is effective. You just gave evidence that it's effective.
Well, but what I would say maybe like punishment is effective, but I would never say the death penalty is effective to some degree, because what you are saying now is that you're saying that it's no more effective than a life sentence.
And sure, both of those things are effective. They cause an effect.
In which case, I would never leave one out.
I don't know why. I don't know why. It's like you're conflating the idea of something having full effect with something that has some effect, and it's like you're imposing on me that I claimed that something has the most effect when I only said it does have an effect.
Right, but I guess the difference is like when you say that the death penalty, to some degree, has an effect of thwarting murder. What to me, what that says is, without it, once you back off of that, what you're left with is the life sentence. Okay. And so, like, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So what I'm to me when I hear that the death penalty is effective in thwarting murder, to me what I'm hearing is more so than a life sentence, because otherwise, why wouldn't you say that justice is effective in thwarting murder?
Well, let me just clear this up. Good child rearing is very effective in preventing murders.
I mean, yeah, but that's not what you said.
Good education is also very effective in preventing murders.
That's not what you said.
Traveling the world is very effective in preventing murders.
That's
all I ever said.
That's not what you said. What you said was
yes, it is. That's the same.
No. What you said was the death penalty is effective in preventing murder.
That also helps. Yes.
And I don't think that it is. More so.
It obviously is with the evidence you've given.
More so than a life sentence. And when
you've imposed more so into it when I didn't.
Well, sure, but like, what's the alternative?
I don't understand. My alternative?
Yeah, if you're gonna stick by the claim that the death penalty to some degree is effective, what's the alternative?
A lack of any penalties would be less effective.
Lack of a death penalty.
I don't know why you're doing that.
What do you mean?
There's lots of things that influence murder rates. Lots of things.
Sure. Death penalty ain't one of them.
Availability of guns.
Yeah.
Death penalty is one of them.
It ain't.
And why do you say that?
In states where they don't have it, the murder rate is the same.
In those states where the murder rate is the same, is there a punishment for murder?
No. In states where they don't have it, the murder rate is the same.
Yes, where there is no death penalty for murder in those states, is it the same, which you just said?
Yeah, it is the same. I just said that. It is the same
and
as the states
is
that
there
do
a
have
punishment that is involved in that state that is not the death penalty? Is there punishments?
Yes, there are.
Okay, so then we can see that what we have here is two punishments that work the same.
Exactly. And
So,
if one is
hold on. No, you've said it like 5 times, and I've clarified 3 times so far. And I don't know how much longer you want to go with this. Try to imagine a seesaw, and it's or a long plank, and it's on 2 barrels. One barrel is death penalty. The other one is life imprisonment. The plank is still freaking level. So when you say death penalty doesn't work, it's like you pulled the barrel out from under the plank and you expect the plank to not fall. The plank would fall. Your connection just went to crap. Try again.
Can you hear me now? Well, I didn't say it didn't work. I just said it didn't work better than a life sentence. When
Great. I didn't say so either. I never said that it works better. I said it works.
Yeah, but it's interesting. But okay, all right. So, all right, that's fair. Solves everything, because when I heard you say that the death penalty works to some degree, what I thought I heard you say was that what I inferred was that you implied that in states where they have it, it's more effective than in states where they don't.
I don't know that.
Okay, good.
But what I actually was saying is that punishment is more effective than no punishment.
But
that's all I said.
That, but we said specifics. Because I wouldn't argue with you when you say punishment versus non-punishment is. I wouldn't be here right now.
Okay. Well, your connection is not very good anymore, although I appreciate you hitting the link and coming on and presenting what you presented. I appreciate all that. But I'm gonna go ahead and shut it down because I've given it several minutes and your connection is staying very, very choppy. Although try again sometime. That'd be great. Not try again sometime like you totally lost the argument. Try again sometime like try to come in when your connection is better. All right, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and shut it off right there. The show wasn't even supposed to be about like crime and punishment on this earth, but yeah, that was kind of fun, I suppose. Peace and respect to you all. Know that I look forward to the day that we're all great friends. And until next time.